because the early diagnostic criteria was mostly built by psychiatrists in committee. And like other disorders, it's a matter of reaching a certain threshold to become either borderline or not borderline. There are, like with any model of diagnosis, strengths and limitations of this. Nowadays, there is the rise of the dimensional model, and this is really rooted in the discipline of psychology, where they study more broadly how human psychology functions. So there's normal personality functioning and more pathological functioning. And this is also useful. And what they focus on in the alternative model for personality disorder is that personality disorders in general are a problem of self-management, identity, self-esteem, coping capacities, as well as interpersonal relating. So what we say now about how to manage, to treat personality disorder, which I think is really useful, especially in early intervention, is to think towards what we call salutogenesis, trying to promote healthy personality functioning, not just intervene when you can detect pathology. And there's a kind of idea that was introduced by Antonovsky about salutogenesis, is that there are three main ingredients about increasing resiliency in people across medical illnesses. It is to enhance a sense of meaningfulness, that there's a motivation that's available to cope with whatever problem the patient has, as well as comprehensibility, that there's a belief that the challenges they have can be understood by themselves and others. And lastly, a kind of ability for that problem to be manageable. That is the belief that there are resources, supports, treatments, and interventions to cope with the problem at hand. So this intervention for BPD can help young people, regardless of how long they meet criteria, to be healthier in their personality functioning. And there are, in fact, studies among youth that show that those who have been in therapy earlier in their lives have better interpersonal skills in the long run than their peers who have never received therapy. So in the alternative model, we think about different aspects of self and interpersonal functioning that you can also think about in your work with patients. First of all, we know that in borderline personality disorder and compromised personality disorder in general, there are problems of identity functioning where the identity is impoverished, unstable, and empty. These are key features that distinguish those with BPD from those without. And also difficulties with self-direction, and this is related. If you don't know who you are, being able to construct authentic or personally meaningful goals, aspirations, and values is difficult, and these two problems interact. That when you don't have goals and values, then you don't have a stable sense of self. So this is very crippling, if you can imagine it. Secondarily, there are related problems of interpersonal functioning. If you have problems of self, your relationship with others will be disturbed. First of all, you'll have difficulty empathizing with others, understanding how they work, because you don't even understand how you work. So you may become more paranoid, more sensitive, and more dependent on others, which is a conflict in of itself when you fear them and need them at the same time. Furthermore, it's difficult to get close to people. And this is actually an important milestone developmentally in adolescence. Erickson talked about intimacy and identity. These are tasks of that period of young adulthood. So the qualities of having BPD, where you have unstable, needy, fearful tendencies, combined with this kind of frantic panic in the face of abandonment, and idealization versus devaluation, you know your relationships will be fraught and unstable. So in this new model of personality disorder diagnosis, which I think can coexist with the categorical model, we think of these problems of self and other as kind of the gateway to understanding there's disturbances in personality functioning. And then there's criteria B that are the traits of the disorder. Research by Carla Sharp has suggested that BPD symptoms represent a general factor of psychopathology in personality functioning. She did a study of over 1,000 patients at the Menninger Clinic and did a factor analysis looking at the ways that the different symptoms of the different personality disorder loaded onto different factors. And while the features of disorders such as obsessive compulsive personality disorder, avoidant personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder, for instance, loaded onto those specific disorders, almost all the features of BPD loaded onto a general factor. So these features of BPD represent what interferes with healthy, stable, and functional personality mechanisms. So GPM then might be particularly relevant for all personality disorders because it is designed for BPD and furthermore really focuses on functioning in life contexts and adapting to the world with the special sensitivities that one has. It's a part of